Out of the whispering pines, 10-year-old Tommy wandered deeper into the woods, chasing a bright red balloon that had slipped from his grasp. As he chased it, laughter echoed around him, jarring, dissonant laughter that sent shivers down his spine. He paused, glancing back at the way he'd come, the towering trees casting long shadows in the dim light. Unbeknownst to him, lurking just beyond his sight, were 3 clowns, Jester, Binky, and Giggler. Once they had performed in grand circus tents, delighting audiences with their antics and tricks. But after the circus was abandoned, they transformed, their painted smiles masking a deep-seated rage. They roamed the woods, drawing in unsuspecting children, their laughter a twisted invitation. As Tommy moved cautiously, he caught a glimpse of the clowns hiding behind trees, their eyes gleaming with a predatory hunger. He felt an instinctive pull to run, but curiosity held him captive. The balloon floated higher, caught in a web of branches, taunting him. "Come play with us," a voice called, eerily cheerful. It was Jester, his face grotesquely painted with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We have games you'd love." Tommy's heart raced. "No, I want my balloon," he shouted, backing away slowly. The laughter intensified, surrounding him, and he realized the woods themselves seemed to conspire against him. In their hiding spot, the clowns shared a sinister glance. They thrived on fear, and Tommy's terror was palpable. Giggler whispered, "Let's give him a show he'll never forget." As the sun began to set, shadows elongated, and the forest grew darker. Tommy stumbled over roots, adrenaline kicking in as he sprinted through the trees. He could hear their footsteps behind him, a haunting rhythm that matched his heartbeat. He ducked behind a large oak, panting heavily. Peering around, he saw Binky crouched nearby, his eyes scanning the ground, a clownish grin plastered across his painted face. "Where did you go, little boy?" he cooed, voice dripping with mock sweetness. In that moment, Tommy remembered a story his grandmother had told him about bravery. He took a deep breath, clutching a small rock he'd found earlier. "Leave me alone," he yelled, his voice stronger than he felt. The clowns halted, momentarily thrown off by his defiance. Jester, annoyed, stepped forward. "You think you can scare us? We thrive on fear, little boy." Tommy stood his ground, heart pounding. "I'm not afraid of you." The clowns exchanged confused looks, their sinister smiles faltering. Sensing a shift in the atmosphere, Tommy felt a surge of courage. "You may have haunted these woods, but I have something you don't. Hope." With that, he hurled the rock at Jester, hitting him squarely in the chest. The laughter stopped, replaced by a deep silence. The clowns recoiled, not expecting resistance. "Let's get him," Giggler shouted, but Tommy didn't wait. He dashed through the underbrush, dodging branches and fallen leaves, feeling the weight of the darkness behind him. As he ran, the underbrush thickened, branches snagging at his clothes. He stumbled, falling hard against the ground. Pain shot through his leg, and for a moment he lay there, breathing heavily, panic rising. He could hear their footsteps closing in, the laughter now a cacophony of madness. "Where are you hiding, little boy?" Binky's voice rang out, twisted and gleeful. Tommy struggled to his feet, but his ankle throbbed, the forest spinning around him. Just as he began to move, Giggler appeared from behind a tree, his smile stretching unnaturally wide. "Found you," he cackled, lunging forward. Tommy's instincts kicked in, and he darted to the side just in time, but Giggler's hand grazed his shoulder, leaving a chilling sensation. Tommy stumbled, fear surging through him, and he felt himself topple backward, tumbling down a steep hill hidden among the trees. The world spun as he fell, branches scratching at his skin, the ground rushing up to meet him. Finally, he landed with a thud, the air knocked from his lungs. Dazed, he struggled to get up, but the pain in his leg was overwhelming. As he lay there, he could hear the clowns above him, their laughter echoing like a nightmare. Did you think you could escape? Jester's voice boomed from above, a mix of anger and amusement. This is our playground. Tommy glanced around desperately. The woods seemed to close in on him, the shadows creeping closer. He could see the clowns peering over the edge, their painted faces contorted with glee. The very air felt charged with their malicious energy. In that moment, despair threatened to overwhelm him. But then, he remembered the stories of heroes he loved, of how they faced insurmountable odds. With a surge of determination, he pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain that coursed through him. "Get away from me!" he shouted, his voice cracking but resolute. The clowns paused, taken aback. "You think you're brave?" Tommy spotted a narrow path leading up the hill, obscured by dense foliage. He hobbled toward it, using every ounce of strength he had left. The clowns laughed, but their laughter had a hint of uncertainty now, as if they sensed the shift in his energy. Just as Tommy reached the path, Giggler lunged at him, fingers outstretched. Tommy barely dodged, and in his panic he stumbled, tumbling forward. But instead of falling into despair, he clawed his way up the incline, driven by sheer will. With every step, he could hear the clowns closing in, their voices a discordant symphony of madness. "You can't escape," Binky howled, his tone shifting from playful to frantic. Finally, he broke free from the trees, emerging into a clearing where the last rays of sunlight pierced through the canopy. Ahead lay the path back to his neighborhood, lit by the warm glow of streetlights. "Help!" Tommy cried, pushing through the pain. He glanced back, seeing the clowns hesitating at the edge of the trees, their laughter fading, replaced by angry, frustrated shouts. "Come back. We just want to play," Giggler screamed, but Tommy was already racing toward the safety of the lights. As he reached the edge of the woods, the darkness recoiled, the clowns' forms flickering in the dying light. He turned to face them, defiance in his eyes. "You're not my friends." Their laughter morphed into frustrated shrieks as Tommy crossed into the safety of his neighborhood. The clowns halted, their painted faces twisted with rage, and slowly began to fade into the shadows. Breathless, Tommy glanced back, his heart still racing. He had escaped the woods, the haunting laughter fading behind him, but he knew he would never forget the danger lurking just beyond the light. With the sun setting behind him, Tommy realized that true bravery wasn't the absence of fear, but the determination to confront it, even in the darkest of woods. He had faced the clowns and lived to tell the tale, and that strength would always stay with him. It was Halloween at Maplewood Elementary, and the school was buzzing with excitement. Decorations hung from the ceiling, ghosts and pumpkins danced in the hallways, and children wore costumes ranging from adorable to terrifying. But amidst the festive atmosphere, a sense of unease lingered. As the bell rang for the last period, Mrs. Harper gathered the class for their Halloween party. "Okay, everyone, let's celebrate with games and treats," she announced, trying to maintain a cheerful tone. Just as the festivities began, a strange noise interrupted the laughter, a distant honking like a clown's horn. The children paused, exchanging nervous glances. Then, without warning, the doors to the classroom swung open, and in walked a clown. But this was no ordinary clown. His face was painted in harsh, vivid colors, a wide, maniacal grin stretching across his face. He wore a tattered clown suit, and horrifyingly, he held a toy gun that looked far too real. "Happy Halloween, kids," he shouted, his voice a disturbing mix of joy and menace. "Who wants to play?" The laughter and cheers turned to stunned silence as fear washed over the room. The children shrank back in their seats, and Mrs. Harper's expression turned from joy to alarm. "Everyone stay calm," she instructed, her voice steady but laced with concern. "What do you want?" Tommy, a brave fourth grader, managed to stammer, his heart racing. "Oh, I just want to have some fun," the clown replied, twirling the gun in his hand like it was a prop. "Let's make this Halloween unforgettable." The tension in the room thickened as the clown stepped closer. His grin never faltered, but his eyes glinted with something darker. "I've got games to play," he continued, his tone unsettlingly cheerful. "And I promise, nobody will get hurt if you play along." Mrs. Harper moved to the front of the classroom, positioning herself between the clown and her students. "You need to leave." "This isn't a game," she said firmly. "Oh, come on. Where's your Halloween spirit?" he retorted, waving the gun slightly. "I just want to make some new friends." Tommy glanced at his classmates who were frozen in fear. He felt a surge of adrenaline. "This is our school, and you don't belong here," he shouted, surprising even himself. The clown's smile widened, and he pointed the gun at the ceiling. "That's the spirit. I like a kid with guts. Let's see how brave you really are." He then turned his gaze toward the back of the room. "How about we play hide and seek? You all have 2 minutes to hide." Mrs. Harper shook her head. "We're not playing your games. You need to leave now." But the clown laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the classroom. "I'm afraid it's too late for that. You're all part of the fun now." With that, he spun around, making a dramatic gesture as he flung open the classroom door, revealing a group of horrified students peering in from the hallway. "Come in, everyone. Let's get this party started." Panic erupted as children began to scream and run. Tommy felt his heart race as chaos ensued. The clown stepped further into the classroom, his laughter growing more maniacal. "Remember, I'm counting," he shouted, and Tommy realized they had to act fast. "Everyone, we need to get out," he yelled, leading a group of classmates toward the emergency exit at the back of the room. Mrs. Harper quickly followed, trying to keep her students calm. The clown, noticing their escape, shouted, "You can't leave. The fun is just beginning." He aimed the toy gun at the ceiling and pulled the trigger, the loud bang echoing ominously in the classroom. They dashed through the emergency exit and into the dimly lit hallway, their footsteps echoing as they ran toward the main entrance. Tommy led the way, adrenaline pushing him forward despite the fear clawing at his insides. "Where do we go?" a girl cried, glancing back nervously. "We need to find a way to lock him out," Tommy urged, his mind racing. They sprinted toward the front office, hoping to find safety. As they reached the office, Mrs. Harper quickly called 911, her hands trembling. "Stay behind me," she instructed her students, positioning herself between them and the door. Just then, the clown burst through the emergency exit, his laughter bouncing off the walls. "Did you really think you could escape?" he taunted, his eyes wild with excitement. "It's Halloween, and this is my night." Tommy's heart raced as he spotted a broom leaning against the wall. "We can barricade the door," he shouted, grabbing it and pushing it against the entrance. The clown stepped closer, the toy gun now pointed directly at them. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he sneered, but his grin said otherwise. "I just want to play." The sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Tommy could feel the tension in the air, and he knew they had to hold on just a little longer. "Don't let him in," he yelled, as the clown pounded against the door. Finally, the sound of police officers burst into the hallway. "Everyone stay back," one shouted, rushing into the office. The clown's laughter turned to frustration as he stepped back, momentarily disoriented by the sudden appearance of authority. "This isn't over," he screeched, turning to flee as the officers cornered him. With the police in control, the children watched in disbelief as the clown was apprehended. Officers escorted him out of the building, his manic laughter fading into the distance. As the police secured the area, Mrs. Harper knelt down to her students, her expression filled with relief. "You were all so brave," she praised. "We made it through together." That Halloween night, the children learned that courage came in many forms, not just in facing fear, but in supporting one another when darkness threatened to take over. And while they'd always remember the creepy clown, they'd also remember how they stood together and triumphed against the terror. Emma was excited to visit the midnight circus with her friends. The lights dazzled, and the air buzzed with excitement. As she wandered off to check out a clown performance, a sinister figure caught her eye. The clown's painted smile twisted as he beckoned her closer. Before she realized what was happening, the clown lunged, grabbing her and dragging her into a dark, secluded tent. Emma fought back, her heart racing, but the clown was strong and determined. Meanwhile, her younger brother, Jake, had been watching from a distance. When he noticed the clown's strange behavior, he followed them, sensing something was wrong. Peeking into the tent, he saw the struggle and knew he had to act quickly. With adrenaline surging, Jake dashed to find help, shouting for security as he raced back to the tent. Just as the clown began to tighten his grip on Emma, Jake burst in, yelling and brandishing a nearby prop. The distraction gave Emma the opening she needed. She kicked the clown hard, causing him to stumble. Together, they fought back against the clown, and just then the circus staff arrived, alerted by Jake's cries. The clown, realizing he was outnumbered, tried to escape but was apprehended before he could flee. Emma was shaken but grateful to be safe, hugging Jake tightly. The authorities quickly shut down the circus, ensuring the clowns were taken into custody. The siblings walked home together, stronger than ever, knowing they had each other's backs no matter what.